good, YouTube? It's Shane Vandergriff coming at you live from Alpha Strength Gym. So today we're talking about macronutrients. So we've got 3 macronutrients. We're going to talk about each one, what they do for your body, why they're important to consider. So number 1, we're going to talk about protein because it's often the first thing I'm asked. How much protein should I take in, right? So let's just get to it. Protein, we're going to talk about what it does for you and why people talk about how much you should take in, right? We'll get into how much you should take in another video. I'll link the next video that talks about macro ratios in the YouTube card or in the description down below. So for now, we're just going to talk about the purpose of proteins, right? So proteins. Number 1 purpose of protein, or the number 1 function, is recovery, all right? Recovery meaning protein's main job is to repair cells and tissues, and that includes muscle cells and tissues, right? So recovery. Number 2, it helps us build muscle because we just said it helps us repair cells and tissues, right? Also, it allows us to maintain muscle. Usually when I say maintain muscle, I'm referring to when someone is trying to lose weight and they're cutting. The last thing you want to do is lose a bunch of muscle mass and then you're weaker, you can't perform as well. You know, if you don't care about your strength in the gym, for example, you just want to look better, you still need muscle mass to look better, to be lean, right? Otherwise, you're going to lose muscle and fat and you're just going to be skinny fat. Nobody likes that. So then you're weak and still fat. So taking in a sufficient amount of protein allows us to build and allows us to maintain muscle when we're trying to cut. It is the last energy source we will use. So it has calories. It's worth 4 calories per gram of protein you take in, but it's our body's last resource for energy. If we're using protein for energy, it means we've burned through our carb and our fat stores. So if you're trying to gain mass, this is probably not where you want to be. So you need to make sure that you're taking in sufficient protein, and that's why we're going to talk about the other 2 macronutrients. So the second one we're going to talk about is fats. All right, fats are your second source of energy, meaning they're used after your carbohydrates, right? Fats are their functions, right? They're good for vitamin absorption. They store vitamins A, D, E, and K, I think. They're great for hormone regulation. This is for men and women, but we need saturated fat to support testosterone production. The cholesterol in the saturated fat allows us to produce more testosterone. And if you're trying to gain mass, this is why you see guys eat bacon and sausage when they're trying to gain weight, and whole eggs as opposed to egg whites. We need that testosterone because it helps us build muscle. It's like our naturally occurring steroid, if you will. We're trying to produce as much testosterone as we can so we can make them gains, boy. All right? So it is an aerobic nutrient, meaning we use more fats, or we burn more of our fat molecules when we're in an aerobic state of training, meaning you're out of breath, but you could still talk. It's like I don't want to say you're comfortable when you're training, but it's comfortably hard. You may be out of breath, you're breathing through your mouth, but you're not dying, right? For example, you know, you're running a mile or 2 miles, or you're doing a circuit workout, but you're not really, it's not high intensity interval training, if you will. It's not HIIT training. So we're going to burn fat molecules there. That doesn't necessarily mean that we are burning fat from our body. It just means that we're using more of these nutrients, right? They are worth 9 calories per gram. Okay, 9 calories per gram. So that's more than twice as much as protein and carbohydrates. So that's why they talk so much about watching the amount of fat you take in, is because it's just so calorie dense, man. You could knock down 1,000 calories of peanut butter real quick, but it's going to be mostly fat. I mean, people talk about peanut butter being a protein source all the time, but they're just wrong. Peanut butter is a fat source with some protein and carbohydrates, not a protein source, all right? Or not, at least not one of the better ones. So the next one we'll talk about are carbohydrates. Carbs are your main energy source, okay? Especially for athletes. Athletes need carbohydrates, especially anaerobic athletes, football players, well, any athlete, but football players, basketball players, baseball players, those people come to mind, explosive, moving athletes. But beyond that, I mean, in soccer, you have sprints. Anytime you're training for an athletic endeavor, if you're training for a sport, you usually need the carbohydrates to support your training and allow you to have the endurance and to have the energy to really get after it. And it helps us, it's going to help you build strength more so than the fats are. So it's our main energy source. Number two, they're usually vitamin rich, right? They provide a lot of vitamins. Some great carb sources are vegetables because they're fibrous. They're great for cutting, but you also need them when you're gaining. We need those vitamins. Complex carbohydrates such as sweet potatoes, the grains group, those are your complex carbs. And then the other group of carbohydrates are what we call simple carbs or simple sugars. We get a lot of those from fruit, but where we mess up is when we're banging down some Little Debbie's that we got at the convenience store for 50 cents. So those added sugars will get you. Not only will they get you when you're trying to cut weight, but they'll also get you when you're trying to gain weight. They're catabolic, meaning they break down some muscles. So you got to watch that, right? We do want to take in carbs, but we want to take in good carbs. We want it to be from plant sources, if you will, from naturally occurring sources, not added sugars. 4 calories per gram. Right, so the same as protein. Protein and carbs, 4 calories per gram. Fat, 9 calories per gram. We're going to go into more detail on these macronutrients, how you balance these macronutrients, percentages, ratios, how to eat for your body type. This is part 1 of a video series, if you will. So I'll put a link to the next video in the description and on the cards, as I said before. If you enjoyed this video, if you have questions, make sure you like, subscribe, and feel free to drop a comment below, right? How do you balance your macros? How do you use them? How much protein are you taking in? Thanks.